The Battle of Ontario remains one of the most exciting playoff matchups in the NHL. It's feisty, it's fueled by rivalry, it's a lot of fun to watch. Toronto Maple Leafs versus Ottawa Senators, Game 2, Leafs win it in overtime 3-2 and go 2-0 up in the series. Welcome to my channel. I'm Victoria and I talk everything hockey and Toronto Maple Leafs from across the pond in Scotland. For today's video, it's another post-playoff game. I never know what to call these because it's not analysis, really. It's just my thoughts on the game, so I guess my post-game thoughts on Game 2. This one was a lot closer than Game 1. It was a lot more anxiety-inducing, especially if you are a Leafs fan like me, but it was a lot of fun still, even if the game did end up finishing at like 3:45 in the morning for me. Still so much fun. So the game begins and it's very high energy. Once again, it feels like quite an intense pace. It's very fast. A couple of minutes into the game, Mitch Marner comes so close, nearly sends one home. And then not long after that, at 3 minutes 44 in, Morgan Rielly manages to find the back of the net as a result of a great play from Nylander. The Leafs go 1-0 up. Perfect start to the game for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The first penalty of the game was called and it was on Tanev, and that is obviously a significant loss for the Leafs when he is in the penalty box because he is a very good penalty killer. So the Sens go in the power play, they did get a good chance, Stolarz manages to knock it down. The Leafs were able to keep clearing the puck. The Leafs penalty kill is something that I don't think is one of their strongest elements of their game. So it's always a little bit nerve-wracking when you see it coming into action that soon into the game. But the Leafs managed to stay physical, keep clearing it, they managed to keep the puck out of the zone enough, and they managed to kill it off. The Leafs then go on the power play as Holmberg was tripped. The Leafs do really well in this power play. They are really driving pucks to the net, and John Tavares manages to capitalise on it and makes it 2-0 Toronto. This was just 18 seconds into the power play, which of course says a lot about how far the Leafs have come on the man advantage. It also shows a trend between Game 1 and Game 2 that the first goal of the game was scored by a Leafs defenseman and the second goal of the game was scored by one of the Leafs core 4. That happened in both Game 1 and Game 2. It was a feisty end to the period, and after the first 20 minutes, Ottawa were out shooting Toronto 10-7. Of course, one power play each way and only the Leafs had been able to capitalise on theirs. Going into the second period, and this is where it kind of goes a bit wrong for the Leafs. Stolarz again is making some great saves here. He looked once again on really good form. Then we have one of the controversial moments of the night, shall we say. Stolarz and Gregg battling in front of the net. They got a penalty each from this. Stolarz got one for interference and Gregg got one for roughing. Both just 2-minute minors, which of course has sparked a lot of controversy about the privileges of goaltenders when it comes to penalties, and also about whether or not the refs are biased towards the Leafs. The bias from the refs towards the Leafs that was referred to about Game 1, to me anyway, it just seemed like Ottawa were very undisciplined in that first game, and that's why they were given so many penalties. I don't know why their lack of discipline has been construed as the refs having a bias towards the Leafs somehow. Do you not think if the refs were biased towards the Leafs that they might have had slightly more success than they have in the last decades? I don't know. Leave me a comment down below. Is there a ref bias towards the Leafs? Or do you think the officiating has been fair? Leave me a comment down below. I would love to hear it. Now, of course, in this second period, the Leafs do have a 2-goal lead at this point, and it definitely feels like they took their foot off the gas a little bit, which to a degree is fine because when you have a 2-goal lead, you're not having to desperately try and catch up the way that the opposing team is. However, it does feel like they took the foot off the gas just a little bit too much. It seemed like maybe a little bit of complacency set in. They just went into a lull in that second period. There was a lot less energy, they felt a lot less physical, a lot less intense. Doesn't feel like they were getting the same high danger chances that they did in the entire first game and in the first period of Game 2. Nick Robertson gets a penalty for a high stick, putting the Leafs on the penalty kill once again, and as soon as that happened, I did think the Leafs' luck with this PK, it has to run out at some point, and right enough, it does, and Ottawa capitalise on the power play. The goal itself actually came off of Carlo. It kind of deflected off of Carlo's skate and into the net, but Brady Tkachuk was credited with the goal, of course. After 40 minutes, the Leafs were outshot 23-10, which I don't care overly about the Leafs getting outshot, because I think that quality is better than quantity when it comes to a playoff series like this. I'd rather that they had fewer shots but ones that look dangerous versus just putting kind of terrible shots on net all the time that are easy saves. However, that second period really changed the tone of that game last night, and I do believe if the Leafs had really kept their foot on the gas more, they might not have ended up having to go to overtime and causing all of us a lot of stress. Start of the third period and the Leafs are almost given a power play quite early in. There was a high stick on Mitch Marner and there was a lot of discussion from the officials about whether it was a follow through or not, which it was deemed to be, and I think this was the right call. He was following through from the puck, and even though it's unfortunate that Mitch Marner got it in the face, I do think that that was a fair call. That is how that rule works. John Tavares gets a good chance, but then the Leafs for a little bit really struggled to get out the zone. They just couldn't get possession of it properly, and they just couldn't clear out the zone. They were also struggling to get a line change at one point, and they were looking tired out there. Ottawa really started piling on the pressure during this third, and it sort of felt like they could tie it up. And of course, right enough, on the Senators' first shot of the entire period, they score. It is 2-2. It's a tie game. With 5 minutes left in the period, the Leafs take a much needed timeout to just reset, recalibrate. Kalle Järnkrok had a really good shot on net, and it did seem like he might be able to take the lead again for the Leafs, but ultimately, after 60 minutes, we were headed to overtime. And at this point, my body feels like I'm watching a Game 7 again. I don't know why, but for some reason, going into that overtime last night, I had the same feeling as that Game 7 overtime against Boston last year. My heart rate was through the roof. I had to keep reminding myself that it was only a game 2 and that if they lose this game, it's not actually the end of the world, but my body was not recognising that fact, and it was not fun. I was having fun for most of that game, and then suddenly I just wasn't having fun anymore. So we head into overtime, and it's really funny because Max Domi did not have a great game last night. The entire regulation, he was very unimpressive. He had some giveaways, he had some bad plays, he just didn't look great. He hasn't looked great offensively the same way he did in previous years at all recently, and I feel like it was a pretty collective notion that Max Domi is not looking great in this game, which I agreed with. He didn't look good. Robertson didn't look great either in this game, I must admit. However, Max Domi absolutely redeems himself, manages to hit a wrist shot home from Benoit, and he takes it in overtime for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we are 2-0 up in the series, baby! Woo! Scotiabank went into a frenzy. I went into a frenzy. Overtime is more fun when you're the team that's made the comeback. When you're the team that's blown the 2-goal lead, it's not quite as fun. In fact, it wasn't fun at all, but we got there in the end. The result is exactly what we wanted, and the Leafs are heading to Ottawa with a 2-0 lead in this series. Yes! This game didn't feel quite as physical on the Leafs side anyway, and they were actually out-hit 44-25 last night, so that's definitely correct. However, the Stolarz hit on Greg obviously was quite a big one. Ridley Gregg does not seem to be liked by this Leafs team. Also in last night's game was the moment where Gregg's stick went into the Leafs bench and Austin Matthews picks it up and snaps it over the board, and I love it. Of course, the Ridley Gregg versus Toronto Maple Leafs thing does date back to when he slapped the puck in the empty net a while ago. It does massively predate this series, but given that it was Greg that cross-checked John Tavares in the last game, it was also him that kind of went into Stolarz, and Stolarz landed awkwardly and kind of seemed a little hurt and slow to get up for a minute, so there's definitely beef for lack of a better term, between Ridley Gregg and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that was definitely highlighted last night. I'm not a fan of Ridley Gregg. I will not beat around the bush, and I always thought Brady Tkachuk was my least favourite Ottawa Senators player, but actually Ridley Gregg has taken that title. So also leave in the comments, what do you think about the Gregg versus Stolarz thing? Do you think that it was fair that they were both given penalties? Do you think that Gregg didn't deserve a penalty? Do you think that goalies need to be punished more harshly than what they are? Let me know in the comments. This wasn't a pretty win for the Leafs by any means, but not every game and not every win is going to be. Giving up a 2-goal lead and the game going to overtime because of it is of course never a good thing. However, it is testament to this team that they can go to overtime and still manage to take the win after blowing a 2-goal lead for themselves, because I feel like Leafs of the past were not able to do that, and so in a way it does seem like a good thing. But as I say, not a pretty win for the Toronto Maple Leafs last night, but they got the job done, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. Heading to Ottawa, up 2-0 in the series. There's a lot that can still go wrong for them, but it is a very strong start. The last time the Toronto Maple Leafs went up 2-0 in a playoff series was all the way back in 2002 against the New York Islanders. So this still feels different, and hopefully they can keep it going even on the road. And I'm certain the Canadian Tire Centre will be full of Leafs fans to cheer them on. So that is it for my Game 2 thoughts. Leave me a comment down below, let me know what you thought of the game. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and also like this video if you did enjoy it. I will of course be posting these after every Leafs playoff game. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon with more hockey chats from across the pond. Bye guys.
Feel it, baby, stress is all around us. These high ceilings and I need it, baby. Pressure and make diamonds, I won't steal it, baby. Silent, baby, hurts to see you crying. Know you trying, ain't no lying, baby. When I say I need you, greedy if I have to share you. It was me that all along did you wrong, thinking that I made you beautiful and strong. This toxicity, the death of me, I fear the day you gone. The most beautiful girl I've ever known.